Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American. Devoted to the business of purveying food and decanting wines, Food and Wine Radio is a unique program highlighting not food recipes or wine vintages, but how to make a profit while satisfying America's palates. In this competitive but highly rewarding sector, many men and women have made profits while fulfilling a dream. Food and Wine Insider is all about better managing any business involving food and wine. Each week, your co-hosts sit down with successful restaurateurs, food mavens, winery vintners, store owners, food suppliers, and other leaders in the worldwide industry that centers on foodstuff and wine. In frank give-and-take sessions, guests and panelists talk about the business of bringing healthy and pleasurable foods and wines to others. Visit us at foodandwineinsider.com.
Our next guest is, in my view, a true food and wine entrepreneur. Meg Barnhart, she is the co-founder of the Zen of Slow Cooking. She has just won an award from the Specialty Food Association, of which Ann Daw, our co-host, is the past president. Meg, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And it's all yours.
Thank you, Don. Hi, Meg. Welcome to the
Meg.
Food and Wine Insider Show. You're the founder and co-creator of Zen of Slow Cooking, and not only have created this terrific business, but one with social responsibility to employ individuals with learning challenges. Could you tell us a little bit more about your personal journey to start this business at a time in your life when most folks are thinking about the bridge to retirement than to a startup?
Oh, that's a great question. So the journey started many years ago. I was a struggling home cook when my children were little. And as you probably read, my middle son was diagnosed as developmentally delayed when he was a baby. So by the time he hit school, it was pretty challenging. And I called my best friend one night, and I basically asked her, I said, tell me what to do. I said, I can't even get dinner on the table. And she said, stop crying, get off the phone and buy a crock pot, which was funny. I understood the first two, but the third one, I didn't understand. I grew up in a home where my mother cooked from scratch every afternoon, and we had a very Zen-like dinner hour every evening. And so I couldn't quite understand, but I went out the next day and bought this wonderful magical device, and it helped me to recreate my childhood memory because I could get food prepped at a time when the house was quiet, and then when the time everyone came home, the aroma filled the house, everything was wonderful, and I cooked steadily with my slow cooker until my daughter started crying 2 years into it, telling me she couldn't eat any more thick meat, which was all I knew how to make, which was chili and pot roast and beef stew. So I understood I really needed to up my game. I pulled out my old cookbooks and tweaked the food, and it got really good. Anyway, fast forward to 2010, I started studying what life would look like when my son aged out of the school system, and I found so little consciously created employment, I decided to create a business for him, which led to the creation of the Zen of Slow Cooking. And in 2012, my partner and I started with a food blog, and just thought there was a real hole in the food space for really good crafted slow cooking recipes. And we basically started with a blog, and then using our most popular recipes, created a line of premium spice blends crafted exclusively for the slow cooker. So that's the journey for the Zen of Slow Cooking.
Awesome. So you started slow cooking in 2006, I believe, and then you created the recipes and the spice blends with Jane McKay.
Yes.
You launched in the Lake Forest Farmers Market in the fall of 2013. Could you talk a little bit about the relationship with Jane and what you really learned in those early days?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like Jane was really committed to proving the concept, and she felt like we needed to really be out in front of people, really have a high touch point, not only with our customers, but also with the product. And what we brought first to the market was a product innovation, which was our whole spice infusion, or Moroccan tagine, and which I think, as you saw, we won a Sophie for our 10th spice blend, our Szechuan spice.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jane would personally handcraft all the spices. We would go, and then we put a big bulletin board up in the farmers market and said, tell us your favorite slow cooking recipes. And then we created blends from, people that popped by. We were right across from a bison purveyor, and people kept buying bison, coming over to us saying, what do I do with this? And we created our dough provençal blend to go with our friend across the aisle. So those were the early days, and it was really fun. And we still go out to the markets today. We were just in a market over the weekend, and it's the best place to really stay connected to people and really stay connected to what people are looking for. So that was sort of how we co-created everything.
Terrific. In the fall of 2014, you launched your online store. I'm just curious why you chose that channel versus maybe selling on Amazon or in specialty stores or maybe approaching supermarkets. Tell me about your thinking behind that.
So our margins weren't low enough really to be in wholesale, to be honest with you, because we were still hand blending. We were doing everything in tins. Our packaging was really homespun. We had tins and ribbons that our children would cut up that we heat sealed. We did everything ourselves. And so we really couldn't wholesale the product in those days. So going directly to the consumer with our own online store made the most sense. And that also led to our ability to start working with adults with disabilities, because in 2014, when we opened our online store, then we turned over the packaging piece of it to an organization called Planet Access Company. And once we got that system up and running and started bringing our margins down, then in 2015 we opened our first wholesale account with a local organic farm. And then just started steadily building our wholesale business. I mean, we really, done it one step at a time and taken a very thoughtful approach to building the business and scaling it, knowing that we were working with adults, with disabilities, knowing that we needed to keep our margins in line to make sure we were successful. Right. So that's why we went directly to the consumer.
Terrific. Can talk a little bit more about PAC? I think it stands for Planet Access Company, and how they support your mission. So Planet Access Company is actually a very interesting social enterprise. It was founded by the founder of Toad & Company many, many years ago, and it actually it's a for-profit enterprise that funds a non-for-profit, and the non-for-profit is called Search. And Search has many different divisions. They operate group homes. They have a social media disability website called JJ's List. They have Planet Access Company. They have a very cool store that they operate, a very trendy store in Chicago. So it's a really innovative model. And what we love about it is they have tiers of supported employment. One part of our business, we have adults who have very compromised learning challenges who help pack the blends. And for many of those adults, that will be an area that they'll stay in within the company. And for some of them, they will then transition to the warehouse part of the business where they run all of our wholesale operations. And then some of the people in that part of it will then transition into employment outside of PAC. So it really starts with supported employment, competitive employment, and then it goes, people actually transition out. And I have to say, the one thing that we feel really strongly about is our team is phenomenal. The heart and soul, we started with 4 adults with disabilities. We're up to over 30 who are working in our business now. Come to work with joy and happiness. When we say on our packaging, each pouch is packaged with care, we really mean it. And it's a terrific workforce, and we're trying to demonstrate that there's all these unique opportunities for employment, especially in the food space, that small artisans could really, really benefit from. We're also hoping to work with another group of underserved adults who are a group of it's a culinary kitchen started for Hispanic women and families, and we're hoping to work with them to start packaging up our whole spice infusion. So we're all about creating empowerment, employment, social enterprise. We feel like that's the best way to move forward, not only for our business, but also as a company.
as the country, I should say.
No, I think that's it's really phenomenal what you're doing. Continuing with your social mission, I had read that you had created a visual recipe and a video tutorial for adults who are non-readers, and you have taught slow cooking to a group of young adults with autism. What have you learned through these social outreaches that you'd like to share?
Right. You know, first of all, I would say thank you so much. A lot of people don't ask me about this part of the business, and I really appreciate this time. It really is the heart of our business. The visual recipe was really interesting. A lot of adults with, and many people have learning challenges, are great visual readers. So we did our first attempt at creating a visual recipe, which was hard. We learned the hard way that we, even though we had other people who were professionals help us, there were steps that were missed, such as draining. We made an assumption when you said to drain, like pasta noodles, that there would be an assumption that you would drain them over a sink. So we learned a lot. Like there's lots of steps you have to put in when you're doing a visual recipe. So that was an interesting little thing we learned. As far as the classes we taught, we primarily have taught them at Project 1212. We taught one at Tap Dreams last April, and it was the Project 1212. The first time we went in, it was very interesting. It was started by a friend of mine named Julie Tracy for her own son, and it's in Chicago. And we went in to teach one of their very first cooking classes, and we had a group of young adults. I'm sure you've seen on our website a video of us doing that class, and one of our students came up afterward, and you could tell he just loved what we were doing. And when his mother came to pick him up, he was in his mid-20s, he didn't drive. He said to her he wanted her to get a slow cooker. And I turned to her and I said, you know what, you're working all day, and he's not. I said to him, Zachary, you're not working. I said, you can be the chef in the family. Let's figure out how to have you do that. And so actually it was great. He really took to the kitchen, and when we went back to do our next class, had actually really taught himself how to do baking. He was making pie. He made 6 pies for us. He's been now bringing them to the local farmers market. His language, his ability, his independence, it was so heartwarming. I can't even tell you. So that's a really wonderful part of our business. And now it's difficult for us to keep up with the classes, so we're creating community boxes and hope to create some videos where people can actually, we can send them a slow cooker, send them some spice blends. We do have one visual tutorial, as you know, on our YouTube channel, making our maple French toast casserole, so that people can start learning how to use this tool. It's actually a great appliance for the kitchen because it turns off, and it's very economical, and many adults with disabilities are living in group homes, so they're living in community, and it's a great tool for the kitchen, or great appliance for the kitchen.
You know, it seems to me that it would be wonderful to have some kind of alliance with Autism Speaks or one of those groups, so that you can really scale what you're doing, because it's so hard to do this in, sort of one tutorial at a time. And right. I just think that's a phenomenal opportunity to, get the word out and find partnerships that can help you continue this mission, because I think it is, bringing, everyone should have an opportunity, and they may have different abilities, but it shouldn't matter. It's, what can you do with the talent you have? Right. So I think what you're doing is fabulous.
Can I share
please.
One other quick story before I let you transition? The other interesting thing is we were on NPR last summer, and actually on our way to the Fancy Food Show, we did our taping and then jumped onto the airplane and head to New York. And I got an email from one of our listeners who had just lost his wife, and he was in his mid-70s, and he wrote to me and he said, I just lost my wife, and he said, we have every cookbook and appliance known to man. He said, but I don't know how to cook. Can you help me? I heard that you said this was a really easy way to cook, a simple way to cook. And I wrote to him and I said, absolutely, I'm going to help you. Jane and I will help you transition to the next chapter of your journey. And by the time I got back from New York, he had gone through all of his cookbooks. I could tell his wife was a phenomenal cook, and he had, I think, 3 slow cookers. And so I said, you pick any blend you want. And he wanted to bring his family of 10 over. And we were doing an event at Williams-Sonoma in the fall. And I wrote to him because he lived really close to there in Chicago. And I said, we're going to be downtown. I said, if you're in the neighborhood, pop over and see us. And so he came over, and we learned that his wife had been a cookbook author. And he was now having fun in the kitchen, really teaching himself how to cook, and showed us all the pictures of the things he was now making. And it was a really heartwarming experience. So we have people at a lot of different stages who jump into the journey with us. We have a lot of young moms who are trying to figure out how to make it work. We've got a lot of young professionals who are tired of eating out, who, a lot of them don't know how to cook. So it's been there's a lot of different touch points for the business beyond the disability market.
I just want to share that. No, I think that's terrific, because we know from some futurists that less than 10% of people like to cook at home. And so if they could find an easier way to cook, you may have ignited a phenomenal opportunity for people to use their home cookers and find ways to make really tasty meals at home that don't require a lot of time and effort. I was going to shift a little bit here, and that, all businesses need capital at different points in their development. And I noted that you ran a Kickstarter campaign. Any lessons that you'd like to give to others who might be pursuing raising money through an online mechanism?
It was interesting. Before we did the Kickstarter campaign, I had the good fortune of having lunch with Linda Darrow, who runs the Entrepreneurial Institute at Northwestern. And I said to her, during this campaign, how do I, what's the best way to get this approach? And she said, really, you've got to get some momentum builders. So what we did is we have a kitchen cabinet of people that we've asked to help join us with the journey. They're ex-CEOs or they're marketing professionals, artists, retail professionals who come together every year, and we bring them problems or challenges or ideas, and then we help kind of go through it. And so I reached out to all of my momentum builders, people I know who had really supported the journey, supported my own vision for my own child, and asked them if they would be willing to jump in and actually ask a few of their friends. And if they weren't, I was fine with that too. I really wanted people to feel like it was something that they were excited about getting behind. And it was a great strategy, because we were almost fully funded within 2 hours of our campaign. And what happens is there's this whole algorithm. Once you pull yourself up, there are about 400 campaigns starting at the same time. It just pushes you right up to the top of the ranks as a campaign. And we just kept really, every day we would send reminders, and we really kept the enthusiasm and actually overfunded our campaign. So it was a really exciting project, and I think people really loved it. It was hard to do because you have to really put together a video and be very thoughtful about it. But it was a great discipline, and I think it's really well worth anyone's time to start that as an initial place to get some capital, because it forces you to create a discipline around your ask that I think is important.
And where are you now in terms of distribution? And is there another tranche coming in terms of monies that you need to raise to get to the next level of production? Where are you? Where are you right now? The business itself?
So we right now is once we were in Chicago's Next Best Food Product Finals in 2016. It was sponsored by Peapod, and they loved what we were doing. So we co-created meal kits with them. So that's a huge growth area for us, is creating slow cooking meal kits. And so that's sort of one end of our business. And then we have our pouches for the home cook. We're in Whole Foods in the Midwest. We're in Chicago and kind of building out from there. Small specialty stores. We're now in Northern California in a few stores. Market of Choice picked up our spice blends in Oregon. So we're kind of slowly making ourselves around the country. We have a local distributor. KeHE is signing us as a national distributor. And so as we scale, we're still bootstrapping. But as we scale, we'll be, I think, reaching out for funding. We also are now part of an investment fund with a local company called Spiral Sun, and they have about 14 mid to early stage food companies that they are building. And so that could be an area that we could go back to them with. But right now we're still sort of trying to keep it scalable within ourselves.
And manageable.
And manageable, exactly. And you know what, and intentional. You know, we're very thoughtfully building our business.
No, good for you. Good for you. And also, congratulations on being a B Corp. I think for our listeners, I would love for you to explain what the B Corp designation means. And I'm going to have you do that versus me doing it.
Well, B Corp I became very interested in conscious capitalism in 2007. It was a movement I became very interested in and have been following. And B Corp was started in 2007. It was a group of companies, founders who really felt like business could be more than just all about money. It could be really a force for good in the world. And I heartily feel so strongly about that. So founders such as Patagonia, the founder of Patagonia, anyway, Numi Tea, many of these people jumped into this movement. And so when we began our business, we began with a B Corp, or conscious capitalism, a structure, which is about transparency, honesty in the business, and making sure you had strong environmental practices. We keep a small carbon footprint. We work really hard to work with suppliers that are close to us in Chicago, and are willing to spend a little bit more money to kind of have that local part of our business. And so basically, we felt the time was right for us to actually become an official B Corp. So we began the certification process this summer. And I have to be honest with you, we have a small business, and it was rigorous for us to get through it. We had to look at every aspect of our governance, and B Corp spent a couple hours with us going through every aspect of our business. And we passed the certification, which I'm really proud of, and is now a logo that we proudly put on ours. And I hope, do you feel like that answers the question?
No, I think it's, you can tell me. No, I think it's perfect. It's, okay. You know, the B Corp designation really is important because it's using the power of business to help solve social and environmental problems. And I think you're addressing some very important social opportunities. I don't know if I want to call it a problem, but the whole area of employing individuals with learning challenges to, change the way, people in general have opportunities to be able to take whatever talents they have and be able to apply them. So I think it's just really terrific.
Well, yeah, and I really feel like it is going to be from businesses where this change is really going to happen. We're more alike than different. We're better together than separate, and we feel passionately about sharing that message. When I first started studying what life would look like for my son, only 24% of adults with cognitive challenges are employed in the state of Illinois, and he's super outgoing, charming, very engaging. I just couldn't imagine a world where he wasn't really shining his light, and he's actually working and doing quite well. So I feel like at every level, it's going to be from innovators that we're going to be able to solve some of these social problems. And I feel like if we could all just take a little piece of it, we'll all be, the world will be fine. Just do your part, and I think everything will be well. So. Anyway.
I think that's incredibly well said and terrific, and thank you for that. As you've mentioned in some of our conversation, it's been a pretty short time you've been in business. You've really gotten yourself noticed. You won this year a SOFI, which, by the way, stands for Especially Outstanding Food Innovation, the Best New Product in the Seasoning and Spice category, Trailblazer Award from Search. And if that isn't quite terrific enough, you're a 2018 recipient of a Leadership Award from the Specialty Food Association. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what these recognitions mean to you and how have they helped your business?
They mean the world to us. My partner hand blended the first 10,000 blends we sold. So that Szechuan pepper. I bought the Szechuan peppers when I was visiting my son in China. And whenever I travel, my partner and I both love traveling. I bring back unique spices. And I said, what do you think we can do with it? And she created the whole spice infusion, the Szechuan that won. And I, love her so much. And she's put so much heart in the business. So to me, that's a complete recognition of her hard work and talent. So that's exciting. And it's brought a lot of recognition from bigger companies, knowing that we're doing something and we're onto something that, as Don knows, 21 million people slow cook every other week. It's a huge market that is really relatively untapped with quality products. And so they're kind of excited about what we're doing. So that has brought a lot of big attention for us. And then the leadership award is really a personal, I would say that just personally speaks to me. I don't know if it's something that within the industry, it's going to give us a lot more business or whatnot, but I just think that it speaks to the soul and the heart of our business. And being recognized with the Specialty Food Association Leadership Award was especially exciting because I know that being in the food business, everyone in the food show has such passion. It's filled with passion and stories of long, recipes and families. And so just to be part of that community and to know that we were recognized was so exciting for us. So thank you for that.
No. Congratulations, certainly. What advice would you give to anyone starting out in the food business? There's relatively small entry barriers to entering food, unlike a lot of other categories, but you still have to do certain things well to be able to be successful, to build scale, and there's passion, but you also have to be able to make money at it. What kind of advice would you give to folks based on what you've learned over the last several years?
Well, for our path, where I think it's really important to stay connected to your intention. I always say that to people starting a business, you've got to ask yourself why you're getting into it, because there's so much work involved and there's money involved, and you have to really understand it. And if in the food business, if you're only in it to make money, I just don't know if it's the right place for you to be, because I feel like there's so much more to it. It's all about passion, and especially in the specialty food industry. It's about sharing your love of food and your stories and whatnot. So I say if you're going to start, I would just ask yourself why. And if you've got a great why, then stay connected to your intention, put your head down and just work really hard. We continually are out selling, out doing, I do demos in the grocery store. I share the story everywhere I go. It's a lot of hard work. And so if you've done all those things, you won't lose the faith. But the reality is, it's a very competitive industry to be in. And so if you haven't really kind of thought about those things, I feel like it's something you can lose. It's hard work, and you can easily go on to something else. So right. I just say stay connected to your intention and passion.
That's great advice. What's next for Zen of Slow Cooking?
So, we continue to innovate. We have other blends we'd love to bring to the market. We have double pouches right now. We have two different. We're getting our non-GMO certification, by the way. We'll have that next week, and we're going to be putting two recipes on our spice pouches right now to make it even more convenient for the home cook. So he or she can have a recipe to go, have one that they can put in the freezer. We are going to be debuting a line of single varieties for people who want to try a few of them out, and hope to launch those starting. We have a broker we love in Northern California. We're going to bring those to test market. As I said, we go very thoughtfully and slowly. We're going to be bringing those to market either at the Fancy Food Show or after. We are working hard to expand our meal kit option. We feel like that is a huge growth market for us. We saw that Publix just came out with their first slow cooking meal kits, and we'd love to bring more and more meal kits to the market. then we have lots of other wonderful ideas. Whether it's a cookbook or an app, we have lots of thoughts. But I think right now we're just really trying to stay connected to building the business as it is today.
A funny story is a young college grad that I know. I was asking him. This was a year or so ago. What he'd like for Christmas, and he said a slow cooker because they don't have time, and then that followed up with a cookbook on slow cooking. And so I think you're really tapping into something that both is wonderful in terms of being able to have good meals at home, make them flavorful, but for them not to take not a lot of time. So I really congratulate you for where you are, which I still think is the tip of the iceberg. Don, I wonder if you have any questions.
Well, thank you. Ann, I'm getting really lazy. You're doing such a great job. It's hard for me to break in. There's just, I guess, one more question. Meg, your website and how people can reach you?
Yeah. So the website's the Zen of Slow Cooking .com, and our hashtag is @ZenCooks, and we answer every email ourselves. So anyone that has a question, we are at a very high touch point. Reach out to us. And Anne, I just want to tell you, thank you for saying that, because we are at the tip of the iceberg, and if we can help bring cooking and home cooking and bring it back into the home and give the home cook an opportunity to use it in a time-effective way, so that he or she can feel guilt-free at work or guilt-free on their bike, or whatever they choose to do with their Zen-like afternoon. Any ideas you have, send them along, because we would love them.
Well,
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
Every year when our editorial team goes to the summer specialty food show, where Ann Daw was president for all that time, we never failed to stop at Patrick Ford's Suckin Sauce booth. Not only does he have one of the most varied line of any food company, but he also has his whole family work there. And I just understand today he let his grandmother have a day off after working 4 days this week. I was really glad to hear that. It is both the charm and perhaps the secret of the success of Suckin Sauce that it is a fourth-generation family business. But one of the things that I found most interesting over the years, it also has one of the most successful email and social media campaigns in the food industry that we've run across. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks, Don. Thanks for having me, Don and Ann both. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of us.
Well, Patrick, I'm going to ask one question, then turn it over to Ann. Um, Tell us a little bit about your family background, how it started, and some of the things that you're doing right now that makes you one of the most successful companies that we know of.
No, thank you. Our family business started way before I got here. It was started. My grandfather and my great grandfather had a small farm in eastern North Carolina and had a little bit of leftover one year and decided maybe they could go around and start selling it to the general stores. And they did, and they started a produce route. And then fast forward up until 25 years ago was when the bone sucking sauce came about. And my parents, my uncle was copying my grandmother's recipe, and he was making, we had a lot of family reunions, and that was our way of sharing family time. And at those, my uncle would always have a couple of barbecue cookers going with pigs on some and chicken quarters on the other. And he had a barbecue sauce that he was making. And my parents had a couple of retail stores along with the family produce company. And they decided that they would help and take that barbecue sauce to market and give it a name. And on the way to college, in Charleston, South Carolina, I was riding with my parents my sophomore year, trying to come up with a name for that barbecue sauce. And my mom said bone sucking sauce because it reminded her of my grandmother, her mom, when she would eat. She grew up after the Great Depression, so she never left anything on the bone. And so my dad and I laughed, and my mom said, well, if either of you two have a better name, let's hear it. And so the name was born, bone sucking sauce. And so that's how we started out with that.
And take it away.
Okay. Hi, Patrick. Very nice to have you on the show today. I would love for you to tell us your story. I think it's actually a story that goes back a few generations. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, that would be awesome.
Oh, hey, thank you, Ann. Yes, our business started way before I got here. We're a fourth generation family business. Our main company was produce, and many, many years ago, my great-grandfather and my grandfather had a small farm in eastern North Carolina. And at the end of the year, they had a little left over and decided they would try and start a produce route and maybe sell it to some few local general stores. And they started doing that, and then they got a spot on the old city market and then kind of grew it from there. And then 25 years ago, we would do family reunions. When I was coming up, that was very common for us to have big cookouts and get everybody together. And my uncle would always have a couple of barbecue cookers going with pigs on some and chicken quarters on the other. And he had a barbecue sauce that he had taken my grandmother's recipe and modified it a little bit and was using it. And it was really, really, really good. And so my parents had a couple of retail stores at the time along with the family produce business and decided that they could give the barbecue sauce a name and take it to market. And so on the way to get me a college apartment in Charleston, South Carolina, my parents and I were trying to come up with a name. And my mom just spurted out bone sucking sauce because it reminded her of her mother when she was eating, because she had grown up after the Great Depression and never left anything on the bone. Or, we always had to clean our plates. That was Grandma's way. But my dad and I laughed, and my mom said, well, if either of you two have a better name, let's hear it. And so the name was born, bone sucking sauce. And that's how.
Patrick, how many generations are still involved in the business?
My grandmother works. She answers the telephones, the one that it was named after. What she did, and she is actually off today because today's Friday. She actually works Monday through Thursday, and she doesn't like to call on Fridays a lot of times because she feels like people are busy for the weekend. So she takes Fridays off. My daughter works in the warehouse. She's at school now, but any kind of breaks or anything like that, she's here. So we have my grandmother, my parents, my brother and I, and my brother's son and my daughter. So that's 4 generations are working in the business currently.
Patrick, did you always know that you'd be involved in the business?
No. I grew up in the produce business, and the hours are very long. So I thought I would do something else when I got done with school. And I got done with school and came back to the family business, and I've never been happier.
Awesome. I understand that you sell overseas, and that's a little bit different than a lot of the folks who listen into the show. I would love for you to talk about how you got started selling to the UK and other countries.
Okay, yeah, that was something we were sending a little bit overseas. Mixed pallets, or a few cases here, a few cases there, just when someone had come to the U.S. and then moved abroad or had heard about it and wanted to try it. And back in 2003, my mom and I decided to take off and go to England and do our first trade show. And so we did a small show in London, and then we had really good success. And then a couple weeks after that, I flew back and rented a car and drove all over the country, over 1,000 miles in a 5-day trip, just gaining new customers. And so that's where we started going abroad. We just did it like we did it here. We didn't know better. We didn't know that you shouldn't do that or couldn't do that. So I just stuck a bunch of sauce in the trunk of a car and drove all over England. And that's where we started really getting a foothold abroad.
And how many countries are you selling in now?
82.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah. We did the same thing in Germany. We did it in Australia. We've been to Japan. We've been, just pretty much a lot of places and doing the same model, just like someone would do it here.
Yeah. You've done many trade shows here in the U.S. and obviously also abroad. What are the most important things to have in your booth, and how to approach your guests who hopefully are buyers wanting to take on your product?
Oh, wow. One thing is have your paperwork correct. You got to make sure you take time ahead of time to make sure that you're handing out something that is relevant, current, and explains your product easily. Buyers don't have a lot of time when they walk the trade shows. So your message has to be simple, and it has to help them solve a problem, whether it be a food item that their customers they think they may want, or maybe you're selling a different type of item, but it has to fix or fill a need for that person. And it has to be simple. You only have a few seconds when people are passing the booth. So your display has to be simple and really get your message across quick. Don't clutter it up or jumble it with a lot of stuff that doesn't help you.
Wonderful. So I'm an entrepreneur and I'm starting out. What's the best advice you can give someone, especially when you're breaking into a category as challenging as the sauce market?
Yeah, well, we didn't know how challenging it was when we started, and we had everybody tell us we shouldn't do it. Even our label maker told us we shouldn't do it. So now when we call, he enjoys our phone calls now. But I think the challenges would be, what I would suggest is start very small. Don't take out heavy debt loads. Don't borrow a bunch of money. Don't take on partnerships. Start as slow as you can grow with your own cash flow. Cash flow is king. And if you grow that slow, you'll control your business all the way through. But if you take on debt or take on partners, you won't control it. And your dream, you're going to take to market for someone else to enjoy it, another person to own it. So I would not go after big distributors or big chain stores to start with. I would start with small independent stores. I would start with people that are going to be more lenient on your labels or more lenient working with you or appointments and all that. But just start and make money along the way. But I wouldn't hinge something on a huge customer, because it actually is opposite of what most people think. Most people go after a big distributor or think if they get a big chain, that's going to help them out. But it really starts, what we believe, in the backyard or in the kitchen for someone. You make them a hero with their family, and then it goes from there. And then they ask their favorite store to pick it up, and then that store needs a distributor, and then they ask their distributor to pick it up, and then the distributor contacts you. And that's the easiest and least expensive way to go to market.
So it's really a grassroots effort and not trying to bite off more than you can chew, I guess.
That's exactly it. And these big chains or big stores, they have a lot of people working there that are very well versed in this. And for a new person or someone starting out, that's jumping right into the deep end. And I'd really recommend starting small. Do pop-up markets. Do demos. Lots and lots and lots of demos. but do small farmers markets. Really just do the grassroots thing, like you said, and get the word out that way. Least expensive, best way to grow a business.
Now, today, how do you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Ann, continue. I'd like to jump in and ask a question about social media later, after you finish.
It's so funny because I was just about to ask a question. I wanted to ask you, obviously, your business is more mature. How do you find you market your products today? How many products are in the line today? And then what's the role of social media in getting the word out about Suckin Sauce and your other products?
Oh, wow. Yes, I think we probably have 30 items now. But when we started just with the regular Suckin Sauce, we didn't have, and still don't have, a big marketing budget. So social media was a real big catalyst in what we do, and as far as getting the word out. We started with a simple email campaign, and then urged people to sign up for our social media pages through that, and just grew it organically and as least expensive as we could. But we became a case study for Constant Contact, which is one of the big email marketing companies, for how well that we communicated with our people, with our tribe. And then we turned that into a really good email marketing campaign. And then we also, with social media, with Facebook, we actually helped them develop how they promote posts and stuff now. I worked with their software engineers on that. And so just because they saw how well we were doing our social media posts, and I actually went and spoke on behalf of Facebook on Capitol Hill 2 years ago as the only person they invited to speak on the new internet laws and how the internet and how we've grown our business using the internet and also Facebook and social media. But if we want to get a message out to somewhere, say, we're in all these different countries, we can pick and target a market abroad and only show that message to them. So that's really handy here because it allows us to advertise to exactly who we think we need to be talking to. Or we just post on there, we have a lot of people that post their successes and want to share their successes with others and also want to see recipes and what other people are doing. But it just becomes a great place for people to share and see and be seen, with their recipes and their barbecue cooking and their tailgates, and just a fun place for everybody to kind of hang out.
It's such big behavior, barbecuing, and it's so different in different parts of the country. Do you find that your products do better in certain parts of the country than in others, or have you adapted the product formula for different parts of the country?
We were real fortunate in that the flavor of our products are well received in all parts of the country, which has been very, very nice. We hadn't changed it for different parts. But we do, the Northeast is a heavily populated area, so that's a big market for us. The West Coast, California, and Oregon and Washington State are big markets because there's a lot of people out there. And the Southeast is a big market. So wherever there's a large concentration of people tend to be your bigger markets and a lot more people to sell to. So those would be areas that I would focus on if someone was going to try and grow a brand. Of course, start, local first, but then if you're looking to I would look at where high concentrations of people are, because then you have a lot more customers.
Awesome.
Or potential customers.
If there's a metric you look at every day, what is it and why do you look at that?
I look at our store locator. That's funny. Yeah, I do. I get a report every day on how many people are looking for our products at stores close to them. Because I figure if someone knows where to get a product, they know the product. But if they're looking where they can buy it, it tells me hopefully that's a new person. And so that's really what we gauge it on, is how many new people and current people we have looking to purchase products or additional products that they didn't know we had close to them.
Oh, wonderful. If you could think back, because you've been involved in the business a long time, what has been your proudest moment?
Oh, wow. The fact that people still want our products every day, that they still consider us a source to feed their families. That's just neat to me. Day in, day out, that we still have orders going out. That's probably my proudest moment.
Awesome. And I'd love to hear you talk about. Yes, please, Don. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to jump in before we got too away from it. One of the things I noticed about your social media was the fact that you very much personalize it, more than I've seen in a lot of other food companies. And it really comes down to you and your family, but mostly you. How did that happen, and how effective has it been for you?
Oh, wow. Well, it started with our email messaging being very personal. Yeah, I used to write a story on there, what we did this past weekend, or what was going on with us or the family, or my mom came up with the idea. It was what's cooking in your neighborhood. So we'd send that on the newsletter, and people would write back. And so we just took that, and when it just became public at that point. But we were already doing it privately for each of our members with a really large 20,000-person email campaign. But, I get emails from people on there now. I get friend requests from people on our email campaign just because it's so personal. And again, we just turned it public with the social media. But we were doing it before the social media really kicked off back in 08, 09.
Oh, well, if I may, Ann, one more question. Do you, when you go to a trade show like the Specialty Food, do you have special campaigns for potential attendees by the list, etc.?
Not for potential ones, but we do have a campaign that goes to people that come by our booth. So they will get usually our follow-up is a picture of the booth and then what items we had in the booth. So that helps them to, even pictures of who was in the booth with the booth in the background. So they kind of charge their mind like, oh yeah, I remember walking to that booth. Instead of just a static email with nothing in there except some products, it really helps to jar their memory. Maybe what they talked about is in the email as well.
Thank you. I didn't want to let this go because you do such a great job.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate that. And we do have distributor list, we have retail customer list, we have wholesaler lists, different email campaigns. And if we come out with a new product, we first email the distributors. Then we email the wholesale customers, and then we email the retail customers. Because we don't want a retail person calling a store or a distributor, or the store calling the distributor and asking about a product they don't know about. That just put them in an awkward situation. So we try and disseminate information from distributor to retail person.
Patrick, since we're talking about the trade, how do you think it's changed that makes it so much more challenging for new entrepreneurs?
I think with so much information available all the time, it's hard for them to really zero in and pick one way of disseminating their information. And maybe it gets lost in all the noise. But I think if they come into the trade and they focus on one way to get their message across, whatever that platform is to start with, and just be really good at that is better than having multiple things they're not doing well.
No, I think that's terrific, and that's really great advice. As you think about the future, what's your biggest challenges going forward? What's your plans for the future?
I think to keep making products that let people have fun and keep them being the hero. We got some new wing sauces and a lemon pepper seasoning that we've just come out with. But I think the main thing is our tribe keeps growing to keep making items that are healthy and taste great, and to realize that we're not the hero in their story. We're the guide. They're the hero. So as long as we can give them items to keep being the hero of their homes, their families, their barbecues, tailgates, family reunions, we're doing our part. And I think that's the key.
That's fabulous. You talked about your daughter being involved. How are you getting the next generation prepared to take over the business?
Sweeping the floors and making boxes. That's the thing I did. Yeah, in the warehouse. That's it. Learning the dress code, learning the punctuality of the business, being on time, showing up, sweeping the floor, cleaning the dock, cleaning the windows, cleaning the bathrooms. All the same things I did, all the same things, my dad did, all the same things my brother did. It's you got to learn it from every angle before you can ever lead anybody.
Do you find that they're as excited about the business as you are?
I think they're as excited as I was at their age.
Okay. And what are they bringing as a different perspective? Because I imagine they're millennials, yes?
Yes. My daughter has an amazing Instagram following. So she brings social media, which I was I thought I knew a lot about it, but I ask her things now when I'm doing some social media, to how to apply the things to her age group. And it's really neat because if we have an event, I'll send her out and tell her to take a bunch of cool, whatever she thinks the millennials want to see in cool pics, and then post it straight to our Instagram, because that's her thing, is Instagram. So it really helps us grow that market.
I was debating whether to ask you this question, but I figured you've been in business a really long time, and you've had, I'm sure, things that have gone fabulously well and things maybe not so well. I would love to hear you talk a little bit about what would you do differently if you had the chance. That was really a great learning experience that you've been able to pass on.
Wow. We have the Japan story, which is an interesting one. When expanding into different markets, we went to Japan and did a trade show. Had a wonderful trade show, tons of leads, really, really great. Get back, start doing the paperwork, and customs wants every bit of our information for our recipes. I'm talking down to the time at this temperature, how many times it was, you stirred the pot pretty much, and when was each ingredient put in, and we weren't willing to give them that information. And so it was a very expensive trip, and we could sell nothing into Japan at that point. And so that was a very good learning experience, knowing that we needed to know the market before we went there. And so we've taken that into account with trademarks, making sure all of our trademarks are done ahead of time before we introduce a product into an area, be it the U.S. or abroad, so no one takes it. And also knowing the barriers to market in those places, because you can really get yourself in a bind and spend a lot of money and not be able to do business there. And so that is our Japan story, and that is one we will never forget here.
And yet today you're selling in Japan now?
We're selling a little bit into some specialty stores there, but no, as a whole, we're not willing to give up our recipe to go in. So we've just decided we'll sell to a few stores that we're doing and go to other places that we can sell and not disclose all our information.
I think there's a very important piece of advice that you just said, which is it's not necessarily about all the things you decide to do and you say yes to, but it's some of the things you say no to, because they're not right for your business. And I think that's a really great piece of advice for people not to lose sight of. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. That is one of the things that can bury a business quicker than anything, I think, is signing or agreeing to things they don't understand. Because sometimes things don't work out. And if you've signed your name to these things, be it distributor paperwork or store paperwork or whatever it is, you can really put yourself in a bind financially. And you don't want to have the doors padlocked. So it has to work. Those words in those documents mean something. Make sure you understand anything before you sign it, or don't sign it. There's nothing that says you have to sign paperwork. So make sure that it works for you and your business and your family, personally and for your business. So those are big things. And it's your company. It's your business. Do it the way you want to do it, because that's why you went into business.
Well, I think that is all fabulous advice. And Don, I think I'm going to have you wrap it up.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. It's been so fascinating. Patrick, your website and how people can find bone-sucking sauces?
Bonesuckin.com.
Okay. And we've been talking with Patrick Ford, Vice President of Bone-Sucking Sauces, a company, a fourth-generation company that has really been innovative, both in the category and on social media. Patrick, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Ann. Thanks for thinking of us. We really appreciate it. You got a great show. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick.
You've been listening to Food and Wine Insider with Ann Daw and Dawn Mazzella. Want to join us on a future show? Contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Until next time, have a passion for food, wine, and profits, and think of our program, Food and Wine Insider.